my beautiful friends, it's Amanda here, and this is the final video in my Best of 2018 series. I'm gonna round up my top 10 favorite eyeshadow palettes. I love eyeshadow palettes. I love to purchase eyeshadow palettes. I love to test them. I love to swatch and review them. I can easily say that eyeshadow palettes are my #1 favorite makeup item, the thing that just gets me excited the most, and I think that's why I dread this video so much. It's so hard for me to narrow down a top 10 and then rank them. Obviously, this is not a real problem, but it is something that I put a lot of thought into. I start making this list around October, and I just edit that list and rewrite it and re-rank it time and time again until we get to December and it's finally time to make a decision. So here we are. I have selected my top 10 favorite eyeshadow palettes that released this year. Before we get into it, just a few things you need to know. First of all, I have dedicated videos on almost every single one of these eyeshadow palettes, so I'm not going to go too much in depth. I'm not going to swatch them. All those videos will be linked below, so if there's anything that you want to see swatches, you want to see tutorials, I've got that completely covered, except there's one palette that I didn't do a dedicated video on, but we'll get to that. So if you want more information, please check the description box. I've got it all there for you. Second of all, there's no possible way that I can try every single eyeshadow palette that comes out. There were probably thousands of eyeshadow palettes that came out this year, and I am just one person. I do not have the time, the lid space, or the budget to test every single palette that comes out. You are gonna notice that the same brands are gonna pop up over and over again. This is because they are my favorite formulas. They are the palettes that I choose to purchase because I'm the most interested in, and they're the ones that just end up working the best for me. I definitely try more eyeshadow palettes than the average person, and I put a lot of thought into swatching these, reviewing them, testing them, and this is my list. These are my favorites. Are you ready? Okay, I'm ready. Let's give a quick shout out to some honorable mentions. These are palettes that I considered. I still think they're great, they just didn't make my top 10. Urban Decay Naked Cherry. Too Faced Life's a Festival. Highly underrated palette. If I had to pick a number 11, I would pick that one. And a couple of smaller palettes that I didn't hear anyone really talking about. The Tarte Foil Finger Paints. Really cool palette, really cool formula. And also the Wet n Wild collection, the Flights of Fancy collection. The small little eyeshadow palettes from that collection were really, really good. I didn't get around to making a video about that collection, but I did purchase the entire Flights of Fancy collection, and I really liked all of it. So I think that those palettes deserve an honorable mention. Okay, let's get down to business. In spot number 10, another palette that I haven't heard many people talk about, and I definitely think is underrated. This is the Coffee palette from Winky Lux. It's a very basic neutral palette, but I just find this to be so easy. I enjoy every time I use this, even considering this is a very completely neutral palette. It's very brown. I mean, it's a coffee palette. What do you expect? I like that I get a light, medium, or high intensity look out of this, just depending on which shades I select. It smells so good. It smells like coffee. I love the little coffee print packaging. This one has been flying under the radar, and I just think this is such a good palette. I keep going back to this one whenever I want a quick neutral look or if I need a neutral palette to mix with something more colorful. I do have a video on this, so go and check that out if you want more info about this palette. Coming in at spot number 9 is the Emily Edit The Once palette. This is created as a collaboration between Makeup Revolution and Emily Noel 83. I'm not really a Makeup Revolution fan, but I am an Emily fan, so I think those two buys kind of even each other out. This palette is quite large, but I feel like I get a lot of bang for my buck here. This is one of those everything you need type of palettes, a great balance between neutrals and colorful shades. This is the kind of palette that whether it's your first palette, you're just starting out in makeup, or if you're more well-versed in makeup, either way, I think anyone on that spectrum is going to enjoy this palette. I actually wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. Like I said, I'm not really a Makeup Revolution fan, but this palette was a pleasant surprise and it is number 9 on my list. Really shifting gears here. Palette number 9, the Once, is the largest palette that I'm going to talk about. This is the smallest one. In spot number 8, I have the Pretty Much palette from ColourPop. I think that this little 6-pan palette got lost in the shuffle this year. It's no secret ColourPop has released a ton of products. They've released a lot of great products, and I think this one just sort of got missed in all of those makeup releases. This is such a cool, unique little palette. I love that it's 3 neutral shades, 3 colorful shades, 3 mattes, 3 shimmers. It just feels so balanced. Of course, the ColourPop formula is fantastic. This palette is not an exception. This one's really fun to use, a unique color combination, and just really stood out to me among all the ColourPop releases this year. The palette that I'm putting in spot number 7, I like for a lot of the same reasons that I like that Pretty Much palette. This is the Razzle Dazzle Berry palette from the Too Faced Tutti Frutti collection. As always with Too Faced, I love the packaging. I loved seeing this different shape and size from them. Once again, I feel like I get a nice balance between neutral and colorful, some really, really nice buttery mattes in here, and then this shimmer shadow is so, seriously so creamy. It feels like a cream shadow almost. Just totally different for Too Faced. Love this color scheme. I loved every single look. I got a ton of compliments every time I wore this too. And it smells like candy. You just can't go wrong. One of the top palettes from Too Faced this year, and just one, obviously it's on the list. It's one of the top palettes of the year. For me anyway. If you like pink and purple, you're gonna love this. Now the palette that I have in 6th place is the only palette I don't have a dedicated video on. I didn't go out and buy this right away, so by the time I got my hands on it, everybody had already reviewed it and moved on, so I just didn't feel like I needed to make a video. I'm talking about the Born to Run palette from Urban Decay. This palette got a lot of traction on YouTube and on social media in general. A lot of people were talking about it, so since I didn't buy this right when it released, there were already a lot of people who were talking about it. A lot of people had received PR packages with it. So I just felt like you didn't really need my 2 cents, but now I'm gonna give it to you anyway. This is on my list. I don't super love the packaging design. I mean, I think it's a cool idea. It fits the theme. It's not my favorite packaging design-wise. I do really like the packaging layout of this palette. It has a nice sturdy magnetic closure, nice big mirror, but that mirror can still fold all the way back and you can still have your palette laying flat. So as far as the actual design on the palette, I don't really feel particularly drawn to it, but the actual design, the layout of the palette, I really, really enjoyed. I love the color scheme in here. I think that this would have been higher than 6th place if there had been more matte shades in here. I do feel like this was lacking mattes, but the mattes that are in here and even the shimmers, I mean, every single thing, look at that. Whoa. One thing I've been touching on a lot is a balance between neutrals and colors. That's something I love in a palette, and I think really will make a palette useful for myself and for a lot of other people. This has a great balance of neutrals, beautiful jewel tone colors. We have a lot of light, medium, deep, plenty of bright shades. The only thing that we're lacking here is more mattes, in my opinion. I wish it was more 50-50 mattes to shimmers, but overall, this has to be mentioned. I do think this is Urban Decay's best release of the year. Like I said, I gave Naked Cherry an honorable mention, but all in all, I think this is the best thing that came from Urban Decay all year. Okay, we're into the top 5 in the number 5 spot. We do have a limited edition palette. This was a holiday release, but it came out so freaking early that I've had plenty of time to use it. I'm talking about the Gingerbread Spice palette from Too Faced. This is hitting all the bases for me. Cute packaging, great scent, a lot of really fun colors in here, grounded in some nice warm neutrals. I did mention in my full review of this palette that these 2 shades, the 2 like dark purple shimmer shades, were a little bit flaky, a little bit crumbly for me. If those 2 eyeshadows were as good as all the other shimmers in this palette, that's really the only thing holding me back. I think that I would have put this in the number 3 spot if those 2 eyeshadows didn't give me some grief. I still use them, I still like them, but they're just not perfect enough for top 3 status. All in all, Such a fan of this palette. This is my favorite palette that Too Faced released this year, and that's why it's in the number 5 spot. In the number 4 spot, I have a palette that actually technically released in 2017, but it was the very tail end of the year. This one just didn't get a fair shot to make it into the 2017 favorites. I actually didn't even get my hands on this until very early 2018, so I'm gonna count it, especially because I love this palette so much. This is the Dream Street. I'm talking about the Dream Street palette from ColourPop and Kathleen Lights. I've been saying the same things about all of these palettes. Not only is this beautifully packaged, but I find the shade selection in here to be incredibly inspiring. I just love this combination of warm neutrals, some really beautiful jewel tone blues, this really bright kind of unexpected coral pop. I've loved mixing these shades together. I've loved using this palette in conjunction with other palettes and singles. I've just found this to be very useful, very inspiring. I took this on a couple of my trips this year. I always love the way my eye makeup looks when I use this. I do quite prefer this over her other pressed powder palette that she did with ColourPop, the Zodiac palette. I just find this color scheme to be more inspiring, more refined. That palette was okay, I liked it, I gave it a pretty decent review, but there's just something about this that I really, really love, I really enjoy, so I'm sneaking it in from the end of 2017 right into the number 4 spot. I bet you're wondering, where are the Anastasia palettes? Don't you always post on Instagram about how much you love Anastasia palettes? Didn't you give these Anastasia palettes great reviews this year? Yes, I did. In the number 3 spot, I have the Norvina palette, and just sneaking right in ahead into the number 2 spot is the Soft Glam palette. Anastasia does amazing eyeshadows. The formula, mattes, shimmers, it doesn't matter. They're so buttery. They're so opaque. They just look so freaking good. Color scheme wise, I prefer Soft Glam. This has just been my absolute staple. I took this on trips. This is the first thing I grabbed for. If I need to supplement another palette, this is the first thing I grab for, but I also love wearing this on its own. I think the Norvina color scheme is more fun, but it just wasn't a no-brainer, everyday, gotta have it. This just, at the end of the day, was not as much of a staple as the Soft Glam palette, so that's why Norvina's in spot number 3 and Soft Glam just sneaked right in ahead of her into spot number 2. You can't go wrong with either one of these though. I like every Anastasia palette I have. I even like Subculture. I don't care if I'm not allowed to say that. These palettes are freaking bomb. Do you think you already know what I picked for number 1? Do you have a guess? What do you think it is? It's the Good Sport palette from ColourPop. This is the number 1 best palette of the year. This might be the best palette ColourPop has ever released. I know that's a bold statement, but I stand by it. Quality-wise, the ColourPop eyeshadow formula can stand up against any high-end palette I have. Plus, it's affordable. So just in general, that's why I love ColourPop palettes. This palette in particular is so yummy and delicious. I don't know what the colors just do something to me. It's warm, it's vibrant. These are the kind of colors that, they're definitely colors, they're definitely bold, but I think anybody would like these. I think neutral lovers would even like these colors. People who like colorful eyeshadow, you're definitely getting this here too. This is just the ultimate. Am I yelling? I'm so excited. I love this palette. Top pick from 2018. ColourPop killed it. Their fall edit always makes it into my favorites. Just fun side note, I took the Good Sport palette with me when I went to New York City for Gen Beauty, and my friend Nani that I was traveling with, Melanin Makeup, go check her out on Instagram, she had the exact same palette and we were both like, oh, I love this palette. And we have totally different styles, totally different skin tones, and we both love this palette. I think that says a lot, not just about the ColourPop formula, but about the shades in this palette in general. They can work for everyone, they can appeal to anyone. I love it. I love it so much. Obviously I love it. That's why I put it as my number 1 palette. I hope you'll go and check out the rest of the videos in this series so that you can see all the other makeup I loved in 2018. I definitely want to hear what your favorite palettes were this year. What are you looking forward to next year? Leave a comment, let's start a discussion. And as always, thank you so much for watching and for spending some of your time here with me. I truly appreciate you, and I will see you in my next video. And I'll see you next year. Bye. I can't. Help me speak. Bye. Right when. Do I sound like a crazy person when I'm like screaming about how much I love palettes? I bet I do. You know, have you heard that phrase like SSDD? That applies to me, but it's like same sweater, different day. That sums up my life. Okay. I'm gonna go wash this sweater so I can wear it again. Bye.